Hi, welcome to Regent Park TV. I'm Jabin, and today we're covering the African Centre for Refugees in Ontario, Canada's first town hall meeting for newcomers in Canada, which took place on February 1st, 2025. The event, titled "Let's Create a Plan to Improve Our Community," was organized in partnership with St. Luke's United Church, bringing together African refugees, community leaders, policymakers, and advocates to address the pressing challenges of housing and employment faced by African refugees in Canada. During the town hall, participants engage in insightful panel discussions and breakout sessions, focusing on key issues such as barriers to accessing affordable housing, navigating the job market, tenant rights, and workplace integration. The event also provided a platform for refugees to share their experiences, promote awareness of available resources, and collaborate on solutions. The meeting featured a special presentation on social determinants of health by Ranjit Kulatilak, as well as insights from Dr. Siu Mi Chang from Street Haven and a representative from Margaret's Housing and Community Support Services, offering valuable perspectives on supporting refugees through housing and employment challenges. This event is especially significant for downtown East communities, including Regent Park, where housing affordability and employment access are ongoing issues that directly affect many residents. rptv reporter Fred Alvarado was at the event to document the town hall, capturing the powerful discussions and the collective effort to build a more inclusive and equitable society for refugees.
Thank you. It's good to see you. If you guys can move a little bit closer to the front so we can all congregate in one space. Thank you once again for joining us. Today we are at the African Centre Town Hall. And the theme of the program today is "Let's create a plan to improve our community." As we all know, the newcomer community in Toronto is quite big, and we all come from different spaces of the world, especially from the African continent. I'm from Uganda, some of you are from Kenya, some of you are from Tanzania, from Nigeria. But the one thing that we have in common is we are all Africans. And the African Centre for Refugees in Ontario, Canada is an organization that is helping newcomers to settle. So at this point, I'm going to welcome Christopher, the Executive Director for the African Centre. He will take us through the open remarks.
Welcome. And good morning to everyone. My name is Christopher, and it is an honor to welcome you all to this important town hall meeting hosted by the African Centre for Refugees in Ontario, Canada, and St. Luke United Church, the House of Friendship. Today, we gather as a community to address two of the most critical issues impacting African refugees in their journey to build stable and fulfilling lives in Canada. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the resilience and determination of everyone here today. Your courage in the face of immense challenges inspires us all. I also extend my gratitude to our panelists, community leaders, housing and employment experts, policymakers who have taken their time to join us and lend their ears to these vital conversations. Your participation demonstrates a shared commitment to fostering equity and inclusion. I also want to thank especially St. Luke Church, Reverend Alexa in absentia, together with David, please, who took us in and gave us office space for work, but also hosting these important conversations. At the African Centre for Refugees in Ontario, Canada, we know that the journey of settlement is never easy. While Canada has been a beacon of hope and opportunity for so many, we must recognize that systemic barriers often stand in the way of true integration. Finding a safe space and affordable place we call home and securing meaningful employment are not just basic needs. They are the foundation upon which individuals and families can thrive. Without them, the promise of a better future can feel out of reach. Housing, as all we know, is more than just shelter. It is dignity and stability. Yet, too many refugees face insurmountable challenges in accessing affordable housing, from language barrier to lack of credit history and discrimination. These obstacles undermine the very sense of security that housing is meant to provide. Similarly, employment is not just about earning a paycheck, it's about purpose, empowerment, and ability to contribute meaningfully to society. Yet, African refugees find themselves underemployed, and their skills and experience are undervalued in the job market. We must address these gaps to ensure that refugees are not just surviving, but thriving. This town hall is an opportunity to shine a light on these issues and, more importantly, to work together towards solutions. Today, we will hear from experts, share experiences, and engage in meaningful discussions. But most importantly, we will listen to each other and to voice. We will listen to each other, but most importantly, we will listen to each other and to discuss the voices of those who are mostly directly impacted. Let this gathering be a catalyst of action. Let us leave this place not only with a deeper understanding of the challenges, but also with collective commitment to address them. Because real change happens when communities come together to advocate for what is just equitable. In closing, I encourage each of you to participate actively and candidly. Share your stories, ask questions, and offer ideas. This is a safe space for dialogue and collaboration. Together, we can pave a way for the future where everyone can access housing and meaningful employment. Thank you for being here with us today, and your dedication is more important. I look forward to your participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christopher, for those opening remarks. Well, at this point, folks, let me invite David. David, come on over. As David is coming, give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much. My name is David Hallman, and I'm the chair of the board here at St. Luke's United Church. And I want to say, George, opening with prayer was really moving. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a very old church, and it was founded in 1877, and early on, it got the name House of Friendship because it was seen by people as a place of hospitality. The park is right across the street. There were people gathering in the park, and the minister here at the time, this goes back to after the First World War, invited them in because they were unemployed and wanted to provide some help with them. And ever since, the church has continued to try and be open and welcoming to people. And right now, we're really delighted that the African Center for Refugees is working out of St. Luke's in the office just across the hallway. We're delighted to have them here, and we're delighted to have you all here today. The St. Luke's United Church is one church as part of the large denomination called the United Church of Canada, which is the largest Protestant denomination in Canada. And the United Church of Canada was the first denomination in Canada to openly acknowledge and receive openly gay and transgendered and lesbian people as full ministers in the church. That was back in 1988, and some other churches have followed and some other churches still don't. But the United Church of Canada from 1988 has been very explicitly welcoming to queer folk And we continue to do that. I'm gay myself, and I'm chair of the board, so that's a kind of indication that one can be open here. We're delighted that you're here. I want to introduce Ruth Silencino. Ruth, could you just stand here? We have just started a project called Ministry with Newcomers. We're in a kind of needs assessment, 6-month phase, and Ruth is the coordinator for that. So Ruth will be relating a lot to the African Center for Refugees on our behalf and helping our congregation. She's a member of the congregation, helping us grow in knowing what our role could be. So welcome, wonderful to have you here. You will already have noticed perhaps that how old a building it is, and we have a plumber working even as we speak in the washrooms to improve some of the drains and faucets and such. So excuse the kind of noise and difficulty of that, but we're trying to continue to make the church able to accommodate these kinds of events. So thank you very much. I look forward to the conversations today with you individually and with panels. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Before you go, David, maybe there is one thing I wanted folks to know about the food bank. I myself am a beneficiary of the food bank, so maybe you can tell them a little bit about that too.
Sure. We have had a long tradition of, because we live in an area where there's a lot of poverty in the area. There are a lot of people who are living in rooming houses, some who are unhoused, who have been in the park. And we have 2 programs to support people who are food insecure. And you might want to make use of these. The food bank, and the Allen Gardens Food Bank, is open here in the gym on Thursdays and Fridays from 12:30 till 3. And the first time you come, you need to register, and then from then on, you can just show your identification and then come. And you can get about 2 or 3 days worth of food. You can come once a week, and you can have 2 or 3 days worth of food. So that's Thursdays and Fridays from noon until about 3 o'clock. There's always a long line outside before they open at 12. Some people come very early to get in line. So that's the one program. The other program is what we call the Out of the Cold Meal Program. That's on Wednesdays and Sundays, and we serve hot meals and provide people with other things like fruit and yogurt and such that they can take away or they can eat in. That's at 5 o'clock. That opens at 5 o'clock. And the same door that you came in is the door where you would line up, both for the meal program and for the food bank. So the meal program is Wednesdays and Sundays at 5 o'clock. You can go away with a hot meal and some desserts, or you can eat it in here. If it's cold, you can eat it in here. That's a meal program Wednesdays and Sundays. Food bank on Thursdays and Fridays from noon on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Come on, you can do better than that. Round of applause for David. Thank you, David. And another round of applause to St. Luke United Church. All right. So are you guys bored or everything is moving fine? You're great? Okay, that's wonderful. So just like I said, there's a food bank. So don't be hungry, don't lack food. There's a place you can come and you get free food, no payment whatsoever. And then you can also access the office for the African Center in case you have any questions or in case you have any information you want to pass on to us. So at this point, let me invite George. George is going to take us to the next session. George, come on up.
Thank you very much. Once again, my name is George Wilobo. Wilobo means the world. That is in Nilo-Hamitic, the Nilo-Hamites. Most of us who are from the North Africa, we are more familiar with Nilo-Hamites. Otherwise, thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you very much, David. I am very, very glad that we are actually seated in this place. It took us 2 years to look for where we can host or where we can have as a center. We are calling ourselves center, but we are operating from Christopher's apartment. It was so sad that we couldn't have someone coming to generously help us with a space like the way the church has done. Thank you very much, David. And we shall always be grateful. So, without further ado, we have a session where we were supposed to have some keynote from Dennis Wamala and Ranjith. Dennis Wamala is one of our chairperson board of directors, and he says he's caught up, but he's coming. And Ranjith also is part of the board. They were supposed to give us some keynote, but we are running out of time, so we are going to skip this session. This part of our program, and then we're going to go into the discussions because we do have all the panelists already here. And after that, we are going to have lunch. Probably that this conversation should take us to lunch. But if it has not yet go to lunch and these people are here, we may have to hear from them, and then we go in for our lunch after the session one. And after lunch, we are going to have a group discussion where we're going to share ideas on several topics and so many things, including access and affordability, support services that you yourselves may want to see improve in your communities. We also want to see cultural considerations that you may want to see in your communities and in your spaces. Some of us who live in the shelters, the support systems that are in the shelters does not consider cultural affiliations, and some of these things that we need to talk about in our groups, and then we shall come out here and then again share with the rest of the people. Then we shall also have some information and advocacy, and this is more tailored towards the tenant rights and some of the unfair treatment of African, Black, and racialized groups like ourselves in the shelter. In the tenant system and the tenant rights system. So I want to take this opportunity also to inform you that we're going to have a question and answer session where it will be an interactive session where all the members and attendees who are here, you are open to share your experience or ask a question regarding a particular topic or a particular aspect of either housing and employment that we're going to be focusing on today. And then we can be able to, you will have experts here to share. But also after this session, you can ask one of the experts that will be seated here today. And allow me now introduce to you Maggie Walker. Maggie Walker is from Margaret's Support Service, Margaret Community Support, and Maggie will be sharing with us today in the panel. Yes, please come. Also, we do have Saleh Sheikh, and Saleh Sheikh is a community leader. He's an advocate. He is very outspoken regarding housing and advocacy for newcomers and immigrants in Canada. Here we have a panel of very serious members of the community leaders, but also people that advocate for so much in regards to settlement services and support services that are within our communities. I will allow my panel to introduce themselves, talk about your organizations and what your organization do, but also most importantly, how linked your services are to the newcomers, what services that you offer to newcomers, settlement services that you offer to people that are new to Canada and immigrants themselves, but also if you can give us how we can be able to access some of those services as well. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. And to the organizers, I think you've done a fantastic job reaching out to the community, getting us here today to speak about these critical issues. So thank you for coming as well to participate. It is important that we show up, and it's important that we share information like this, and that there's no gatekeeping. And Margaret is very appreciative of the invitation to come and present to you guys today. I am also Margaret, but I am not the Margaret who launched the organization. The organization was created as an ode to another woman much greater than me. We started since 1984. But to tell you a bit about myself, my name is Maggie. I go by Maggie, and I identify as a Black woman, a first-generation immigrant to Canada. My background is Jamaican, and I came here about, I want to say 11 years now. So if you're not hearing too much of the patois, just give me a minute, you'll hear it come out somewhere. But that's also one of the things we do, I guess. We learn how to assimilate and to neutralize and to fit into spaces, and rather than be othered. And so I fully accept my position in that space, negotiating who I am in Canada, and I fully understand you coming as newcomer, the barriers that you are facing as you try and figure out what's your next step. Margaret's Housing and Community Support Services is an agency, a nonprofit agency that operates within the downtown core. We have a few housing programs where we offer a continuum of services from emergency shelter to permanent housing. I have with me today Sanika, who also works with us, and throughout the day we will be here accepting, open to conversations with you around issues of housing and issue of employment, because we also offer that service of employment. Employment counseling and job facilitation. So this portion of it, though, the employment, it's the Integrated Employment Services Program, will begin in March, but we thought that it was a beautiful opportunity if we come today, start sensitize the community that this is coming on stream, and that if you are interested in this sort of service, then you can reach out to Margaret. Our numbers are on the flyer. I'll just say that. You can get the flyers from Sanika. You see our numbers and our email addresses, but we will be here as well to speak with you on that. I don't know if you wanted to get into some of the deeper discussions, or we just pass on for introduction. Yes. Okay.
Well spoken, by the way.
Thank you.
I would like to thank everyone for being here, and for Christopher, as always, great job.
Thank you.
David, for hosting us here. Thank you, and for the church. My name is Salah Sheikh, and I always have this question when someone asks me to introduce myself. How long did it take you not being a newcomer? Because I've been here for like 4.5 years. I still think myself as a newcomer, because I'm still learning every day and new things. So I would say Saleh as a newcomer, and I've been working in the community since I was in a shelter, because I saw what was happening to us as a newcomer and asylum seekers, and I figured out that something needs to be done. And from that day until today, I've been working in the communities, supporting my brothers and sisters in Peter Street, and shelters, and the church now offer me an office, so we're office mates here in the church, and we offer the same services that is needed, and we're doing all we can to support everyone. Housing services, trying to find shelters with the support of Christopher again. So I'm glad to be here, and hopefully we can answer some of the questions that you have and share some of the experience that we learned to save you some time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as we go into this session, most of the attendees and people that are here, most of them and some of them are from different phases of their integration. Yeah. And all of us being newcomers to Canada, you may have someone that is currently either very few weeks or months into Canada. Some people are in the shelter system. Some of them are preparing to get out of the shelter system to go into the, to settle now as, to have rent to their own apartments or houses and stuff like that. But also there are those that are already having the spaces where they're living or housing, but they are needing some sort of assistance with their employment. And there are those that are in employment, but they are not in a better placed employment as well. So that is the kind of array of our clients or people that we serve at the African Center for Refugees. Now, from the Margaret's Housing and Community Support Services, at what point, what's your entry point to support people who are new to Canada?
That's a great question. The entry point. Margaret's is a client-focused organization. And so we started out primarily focusing on women back in the day, and we've morphed into something greater than that. The organization now provides services across different groups and population. However, since the last, I want to say, 7 years or so, we've seen more newcomers and more Black and racialized newcomers coming into our programs, coming into our services. And so for us, it's a need for us to reinvent ourselves so that we can provide service where it's critically needed. You're coming, and when I say you, the audience here, you're coming into Canada at a time when they are forced to recognize that you exist. Canada's national imagination does not, I don't want to start getting on a platform here, but their national imagination didn't allow for people of color, for racialized folks like you and I, right? They saw Canada as a white country. And so when you come, we find that there is this idea of whether or not there is enough space or there's enough room or there's enough resources, and there is. What we need to do is to figure out how we ensure that the playing field is equal, that you can access services despite your ethnicity, despite your sexual orientation, despite your gender, that we don't have to create these silos where we're serving people with critical human rights principles. Housing is a right. It's not a privilege. Many of the persons who identify as asylum seekers or refugees are accessing the right to protection. And with that right to protection, it's already been established what are some of the things that you should be getting. And a part of that is the social services that Margaret's offers. It's housing, it's income support, it's counseling, it's all the wraparound services that you are entitled to. So when we have a situation like we did in 2023, it shows that we haven't really grasped the truth of that as a country, because here we are having people who are facing barriers to that. So Margaret's as an organization has been on the forefront trying to make it easier for Black and racialized individuals to access these social services, and it's through programs like our Integrated Employment Services Program and our Housing First program that allows you to get those things. And we do believe that without housing, you're not going to necessarily be able to sustain that job. And we do want to provide you with the right opportunities and the right supports that will sustain and help you to retain those hard-earned miles that you'll be walking as you try and reconcile your new realities here in Canada.
Maybe a follow-up question on what you mentioned as Housing Fast program. What is the rate of, okay, not the rate, but how accessible are these programs? And if they're accessible, how do newcomers take advantage of this existence of such programs to either enroll or get into to benefit from the services that you offer?
So through the City of Toronto and the province, there are a couple of facilities that have been made available to individuals who are facing homelessness. And so it's not necessarily geared towards only a certain ethnicity. It's whether or not you classify as being homeless, unhoused, and your eligibility based on certain documentation that you can provide. So if you are if you are of legal status, if you have the relevant IDs, if you need those sorts of things, then Margaret's will help you to become housing ready. And then once you're housing ready, having all the necessary accoutrement and documentation that you require, then we will figure out which program best suits you. There is the rent heir to income, for instance, that you can apply through. There is also, I think it's Canada, Ontario, it's called Co-op, that you can also access as well, which is a temporary program. So there are different facilities that are out there right now that newcomers can access if you have the relevant documentation and meet the eligibility criteria.
All right, thank you very much, Maggie. You mentioned co-op, and we shall come back to co-op,
Yes.
because I believe that there are so many members that are within here listening to you that want more information regarding co-op. Let's go back to Saleh. You are an advocate for new arrivals in Canada, like as immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers. We've seen in the previous year, and actually early this year, I think, people dying in the shelters. And you must have heard of people who are frozen to death in some of the makeshift shelters that were in Mississauga. Now, in your advocacy, what strategies and resources do you work with, and how does your voice amplification assist the newcomers who are in such situation where they have to brave the cold to have where to sleep?
I think I'm the wrong person to ask that question. Because what I do is shouldn't be done, city should do that. I go at night at the streetcars and the park to get people who are sleeping outside to my house. So no one should sleep out on the street. And that's what got me in the table with all these great people that invite me to their groups. I think no one, and they say, like Maggie said, housing is a human right. And this is what Canada say, and they signed that document. So no one should sleep in the street. And I was doing advocacy before this crisis started, call it crisis now, with people in Olive Garden, Canadian citizens who used to sleep in the street. Then we heard about what's happening on 29 Peter Street, and that's when we start doing the advocacy that we do. We are talking to the city about building new shelters, getting more capacities. No one should sleep in the street. So what we do is, last year we spoke to the city, and we spoke about newcomers or African have not experienced the winter before. They have something called warming centers. They used to have a rule that they cannot open that unless it's 11 or 5 below zero. But we cannot handle that weather. I used to go in a city office and city halls and tell people that for us 5 below zero, that's too much. So now they make it 5 below zero when they open the warming centers. Before that, it used to be 11, it used to be 14, they had the different rules for that. But now we push the city to make that temperature less. That's one of the first things that we advocated for. So now they open it more frequently, and it's opened until the middle of April, and they didn't used to do that before. But they used to have a different rules for Canadians. They have, they can handle the winter more than us. So that's one of the things that we successfully did last year. And every time they spoke about building new shelters, but that takes time. So now we were working into making makeshift shelters that will make people not sleep out in the street. And I think through advocacy, we could manage some funds to open more transition housing, hopefully. Yes, we can do that. Yeah. And part of the groups I work with is the African Canadian Collective. Christopher group is with us. And they were doing a great job. And everything we do is to make that people know that this is Canada for everyone. People say that, I usually don't like to speak about racism, because it's there, but it shouldn't stop us. Because we're here in Canada, and Canada it's not white. They think it's white, but it's not. It was for the native, then everyone after that is a newcomer, or a refugee, or a settler. So it's our country. And usually I tell my clients that as soon as you land in Canada, you're Canadian. That's your right. This is the promise that they said, the government said, Canada value is about. So every one of us is Canadian. We have to work together, not for us today, but for the next generation. This is how we're going to make this country more welcoming. And we use all the power that we have to change what they want. Usually people say what's white is right, or what's right is white. We have to change that. When you go to the city and you advocate for our brothers and sisters, 90% of the officials are white. But the people who vote for them are black and all other ethnicities and newcomers and refugees. So we can change that. We can push them to do what we want. And I want to maybe this is going to be later in your questions, but I want to say that. Don't think about yourself today and getting a job now, or think about, I have to support my family. No, think about what you're going to do to everyone else next to you. Like Christopher, like me, we could think about, my background back home was finance. When I came here, I found that anyone could be an accountant. They could do that. But how many of us can do advocacy? Could go outside and advocate for other folks. People who work in social work, people who volunteer to be not getting paid, because like Christopher is not getting paid yet, maybe one day. All these people who are doing the hard work for everyone else. Like I said, I go up when it's before midnight and I go to the streetcars, go to 29 Peter Street to see if someone is sleeping out there. We give jackets, we give blankets, we give them food, and if we couldn't find someone to host them, we host them in our house. Why we're doing this? I'd rather sit home, watch Netflix. But someone should do that. You shouldn't thinking about it's not me. It has to be every one of us. So let's talk more about how we can make this happen. And advocacy is you speaking out. Back home, in most of our African countries, if you speak out, you come to Canada. We have to go through a lot of things. But here we have the chance to do that. So every one of you could be an advocate by posting something, helping each other, speak about our groups that helping more people, and just share the information. That's an advocacy. You don't have to go to city halls, you don't have to go live whatever day work you want to do. No, just spread the word, help us to do more by telling other people that everything is possible. So that's advocacy.
Thank you very much, Saleh. Now, back to Maggie. You mentioned something in your previous submission regarding co-op. And there are so many members in this room today that would want to hear more about it. But before I ask you about it, I wanted to ask you regarding your programming that you mentioned earlier. How are you able to support members or people with permanent housing, based on the fact that most of the members and clients that we support and members of African Center for Refugees that we support, their settlement service requirement or need, if it comes to housing, their first time in Canada and then they get settled in maybe in a shelter, they would want to spend very little time in the shelter system. Because one, they come when they are very highly educated, they come when they have very vast experience in different fields that they have been working. Some of them are coming from very wealthy background or families. But then what they want, yes, the shelter system holds them to give them that ability, the first primary basic assist settlement service, but then they would want to get out because they are not used to being in this kind of homeless situation or system. Most of the members that are here will agree with me that in Africa, the word homeless is rare. We don't have such thing as being homeless. Because if you're in the city, you may have to go to your relatives back in the village and then live with them. So, what permanent housing structures or programming do you have for those that are in the shelter, but they direly want to leave or get out of the shelter, but also at the same time, they do not have a job, okay? They do not have the requirement that right now, when you want to have an apartment, which is one-bedroom apartment, they'll ask you for a referee, they'll ask you for pay stubs, they'll ask even for the credit record of the referee, then they will need the pay stubs of the referee. So even the person that is referring this person to get this housing gets scared. Like, why are you asking me all that? So now this is someone who is new to Canada. They don't have such entrenched network where someone is going to give them their pay stubs and references with all that I've mentioned. So what programming do you have as Margaret House to support people with permanent housing? And then you can also talk about how to access the co-op itself.
Before I answer the question, which I love it, I love how you phrased it as well. It's a very valid question at this time. Can I ask the persons in the room just to show me how many of you are interested in housing? Okay. How many of you are familiar with the co-op or RGI application? Okay, because that gives me an idea of how to discuss it. Okay. Let me first say this. Prior to the large numbers that are showing now in the system of Black and racialized refugees and asylum seekers, the Toronto shelter system was primarily or predominantly focusing on those who are experiencing homelessness, usually through complex mental illness and addiction, substance use, and a number of other issues that may present itself that would require them to seek emergency shelter. So the unhoused is now becoming more brown. We're seeing more of our, when I say our people, I mean as somebody who identifies as Black. When we see more of our people entering the system, understand that this was not so before. We were largely catering to a different demographic, just those within Canada who are Canadians who are experiencing homelessness. So when you are now coming as an asylum seeker without the networks that you have identified, which you do need, this is the only system in place that can support you getting housed. And so what the Toronto Shelter System Services Group have done is to create new facilities like the co-hub that can allow for greater flow in the system. So for those people who have been chronically unhoused for over a number of days or nights or months even, they're trying to get them out of the system so that they can get the newer ones in and so create flow. That was not the case before. Canada's also had a situation where there was not a lot of affordable housing being, developments taking place. And so that also impacted what is available for you to access through co-op or other sorts of facilities. So while there may be some funding available, there is now the issue of finding the actual infrastructure, the houses, the apartments themselves. So it's a very complicated situation, but Margaret's, as an organization that has years working in the industry and in the sector, we're able to now figure out how we can navigate those systems and those complexities to better offer this service to people who are in need like yourself, right? That fit your demographic group. So, Christopher, thanks again for having this forum. How do you access the co-op? Unfortunately, you would have to be in a shelter. And I say unfortunately because of the intersectionalities of issues that presents within the current shelter system. You are going to be sharing spaces with people who have complex mental illnesses, people who have substance addiction, people who've been there for a very long time, and so their mindsets may be different. And we've seen that too, that in itself can be a re-traumatizing experience for the newcomers coming in. But right now, it is the only way that you can get into the co-op. Who knows, they may change this at some point, but you'll have to be in the shelter system or be on some service provider list. And the number of nights that you stay in the system is how you go up the ranking for eligibility for the co-op. So they want to get the people who've been in the system for the highest number of days. And this is, again, not to, I'm not overselling TSSS because we know that there are issues, but they are responding to the criticism that why are people spending such a long time in the shelters? It is supposed to be emergency, not permanent housing. So they're trying to get the people who've been there for the longest time the first to get the housing. And I think it's fair. So as they go down that list, each service provider will get an allotment of co-op based on resources that the city has. So they will look per quarter and decide, okay, we can give 5 co-op to this service provider, we can give 10 to this service provider, we can give 2 to this service provider per month. If you are now that service provider like Margaret's will take a look on our internal Smith system, which is the system that the shelter management portal that we put all the names in. And then we look at those who've been there for the longest period of time. If you are selected, if you are on the priority list and you're selected for co-op, then we now go through the readiness process. Do you have all the documentation that you need to get into housing? We give you a list to go and do viewings, or if you have your own place that you've already identified, you can speak with our housing worker about that. Once we gather your documents, your IDs, your statements of income, which you would have, and income could be social income from the city, or it could be that you're working. If you have those bank statements to support that there is stable income coming, consistent income coming in, then we use that as well as your documents to make the application to your landlord. Am I being too granular with the details? I hope it's been helpful, because I think I want to demystify that, there is favoritism or there is, You know, there are some shelters getting more than others. I don't believe in my heart of heart that that's what's happening. They're taking a look at the macro system and they're identifying based on numbers and the size of the shelters, how many should go to which shelters. It's just based on numbers, right? Unfortunately, there's just not enough resources to go around. So once you do all of that and you go to your landlord and your landlord says, okay, and if you do need support from Margaret's to have those conversations, because we do know that there is systemic racism. We do know that if you show up as a newcomer and you're unable to have those conversations in a certain way, to articulate yourself a certain way, then there may be biases in you landing that apartment. So our housing workers will go with you to the viewings, at least at Margaret's. I must tell you how our housing hub operates. We will go with you to it to make sure that you have all the supports you need, and this landlord sees that you are not just showing up on your own, that you have an entire organization behind you. And once we do that, they're going to ask you to fill out this application form. They're going to ask you for referrals, which we again will also refer to you, and we can do that because you've been with us for some time. We have that relationship with you. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what goes into a co-op application through our housing hub. Again, I'll speak about Margaret's housing hub. And we've been highly successful with getting our clients into homes.
Thank you very much. Members, if you have any question regarding that particular topic, you can keep it, and then at the end of the session, we're going to have a Q&A. You'll be able to ask the panelist herself to clarify on what you may want to have as clarification. Back to Sally. As an advocate in this whole housing, City of Toronto sort of settlement services, there was, and also being a member of the ACC, which is the African Collective, there is this proposition that actually African Center for Refugees had earlier on made to the city regarding the racialized group, but also people with like the LGBTQ community itself. And we had earlier submitted a proposition to do a shelter, a refugee shelter, but particularly for LGBTQ persons. What is your understanding and take on the current move by the collective to propose a black-led shelter? And also, to add on to that, how does a black-led system support a newcomer, like from an African perspective?
Okay. You have to ask me before you go to her first, because she gave you all the right answers. Okay? You don't give me a chance to speak. Just skip one time here, okay? But she'll say all the right things. Okay, to the advocacy part is, okay, I'm gonna say something again. First, I would like to speak about the co-op and all the other stuff, then we will go to the black. Again, if we don't fight, if you're not in the table, we're in a meeting. You heard that before, right? If we don't fight, then we'll not get our rights. The co-op, it was made for Canadian before us. At 2000, before COVID, 2020, if you sit in a shelter for 6 months, you receive co-op, or you get housing. People who used to get housing, what bachelor for like 900, so you get the 360 from Ontario work. If you work part-time, you get that, you're out. Or you wait for the housing and you get that. But after COVID, housing crisis got bigger. Then the crisis when newcomer came, things got bigger. And there is no enough rent to get income bill. So the list for housing is like 10 years now. When you apply, you put your name in the list, you put all your documents, you get like 10 years waiting list in Toronto. Co-op is not enough, and the program was designed like 5-6 years ago. What happened now that co-op is not enough. So we advocate first to have a different kind of funding for newcomers and refugees. Keep co-op for Torontonians, for Canadians, for anyone who is receiving it. Find another funding that will serve us. That will be direct. We don't have to wait in a line, because if in a shelter, there is like, how many residents are in a shelter, Maxwell Megan? Christopher? How many residents are Maxwell Megan?
261 men.
Okay. And if you get co-op, I think co-op will stop this month. I heard that from some clients, but I'm not sure. But let's say you get co-op. Every shelter will get like 10%, I think? 5. So that's not enough. And it will not be enough. So how many, I'm going to ask the audience a question. How long, who's been here more than 6 months? Just raise your hand. More than 6 months. Do you have a credit card? Okay, that's it. Work on yourself. We're going to talk about city for like days and days. Go to the bank and put 500, they will give you a credit card. Use that to buy your grocery, to buy anything. Then you build your credit card. When you need help the organization, like Margaret, when they're going to advocate for you, they're going to need experience. Volunteer somewhere. Get someone to testimony for you. Refer. Buy a credit card with your own money and use it. Then if I ask you for a credit check, you have that. Do your part, and we will do the rest. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm using co-op now, by the way. I'm receiving co-op like most of the people who are getting that. Co-op, it will hold you back, because if you work, you get out of co-op. If you get something, you get out of co-op. Don't wait for that. I use an example that I would tell my clients be like the Indians. People here are saying Indians are taking our job. They're doing what they can to survive. Let's do that. Work as an Uber. Get a bike and work as an Uber. While we're sitting here discussing co-op, if we can do that. I'm going to say something I usually say when I'm speaking. If I'm here advocating for folks, how could someone with an able body sitting back and sitting talking about getting money from the government? Work. We came from Africa. We used to do all what we can there. We survived the war, everything that you know that we came from. So don't sit here and wait for government assistance. Do something, and we will help you with the rest. We have a lot of organizations helping here, but don't come to me and saying that I'm in a shelter for 6 months and I can't sleep because someone is snoring next to me. Come on. We came through a lot to be here. So work hard, and we will do the rest. And that's for the advocacy again. That's the advocacy in my head. I always like to speak about that. Let's go to back to the question. Sorry about that. So about the ECC and the black run shelters. That will help us to do everything right. Do it our way. If we receive, like, because I go, like I said, I go to 129 Peter Street, and see my brother from the airport. And I start telling them what we can do for them from day one, how to access legal aid, how to fill the form, how to speak about their narrative, how to go to get a Presto card, library card. And Christopher, you should have a library card. Tell that to your clients. So we tell them what to do. If we could find the black run shelters, newcomers, and I think city will say no for black run shelters or full black shelters, because Canada is all about interrogating and all the other stuff that they say. But we have people work in the system and they're racist. I can say that. I used to have people, staff from the shelters, and clients used to tell me they used to treat it differently because they're newcomers, or they're black, or they're from the LGBT community, or because they're Muslims. And at the end of the day, we're humans. We have our own biases. So if we had that black run shelters, we will take them from the day one and tell them how the system works. We give them program and training that will help them to find work, how to go access school services. Because in the shelters, there is no programming now for anyone. And if you're lucky, you find the shelter get you programming from, I think it's called Greenhouse, oh no, Greenwood, right? Greenwood. They tell you about bankruptcy, they tell you about how to access services if you came out of mental health or out of prison. But this is not the program that newcomers need. Some people have issues from having different culture happening in the shelters. Some people have difficulty coping with people with mental health in the same location. People coming out of prison, all these things. And we have, I think, lately have one of the clients who passed away. And the news first came, said he passed away because he was using drugs. If we could find a system that would support him, he won't go to that. We don't know what happened to him. We're not sure about that yet. But if we could have, how do you say that? Accept them and hold them, put them in a system, find a support system that can be built for newcomers, that will be helpful. But I think this is a big fight, and we have to do this by everyone here speaking about that. Again, I go to the advocacy front. We have groups working outside. We need to ask them, and I spoke to city councilor, I think Alejandro Bravo, about this one time, but they never follow up with, to have groups coming to the shelters and giving information session to newcomers. Tell them what they need, but have to become from our part. Black-run organizations, having weekly or monthly sessions, telling newcomers how to access the system, because it doesn't make sense for a newcomer to spend a bingo night or watching a documentary about how to declare bankruptcy, and we don't have bank account yet. Doesn't make sense. So all this part is take us back to building black-run shelters, or training the shelter staff how to be culturally sensitive, if that even possible. So someone who will see you as a newcomer, and I used to have one of my clients told me a story about when they were trying to serve them food in a shelter, and this client couldn't eat that food. So the staff came to him and said, "You people are starving in Africa, and you don't like our food?" Something like that shouldn't be said to someone. You don't give me food that I cannot eat, and you tell me that people are dying in Africa because they're hungry. What happened in Africa is not happening everywhere, and that doesn't mean I eat food that affect my body and my health here. All this stuff have to start from us, and I think training the shelter staff for now is more important until we fight the fight about building new black-run shelters. And the ECC is doing a great job about that. Christopher and most of the group go to this meeting. I went to a couple of meetings, then I said all the wrong things, so I'm not part of that table anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally. I'm going to ask you both like two questions, then we go to the audience to react on most of the things you've made mention of. I wanted to come back to Maggie in regards to your earlier submission. You talked of employment. Now, could you dig deeper into the program, the new program that you're launching in March regarding employment, and how our members here can be able to access? Because I believe that members that are here, some of them have very beautiful resumes. They have gone to different resume sessions. They have gone to employment counselors. They have had a lot of information regarding job ready, being job ready. However, there are no jobs. There are no. They have gone to job fairs, career fairs. They have gone to all those whatever fair that it is. Now, what is that employment program that you're introducing in March? But also, how does it answer the question of employment itself? Like, because like earning, when they are able to earn, and then number three, how do they access it?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, David. The stark reality is that coming to Canada with all your wealth of experience and all your professional and educational qualifications, you're more likely to have an experience of what we consider de-skilling, which is, even though you have this experience and this educational qualification level, and some of you quite high up, you're not necessarily going to find it easy finding a job that meets that bar. And so that de-skilling is something that many, if not most, majority of newcomers face, including myself. I came here as a highly trained Jamaican woman working in the highest levels of government. And when I came here, I was not able to find a job. I had to scrape and go back to school, and I was more educated than everybody else in the program. I had to do that and then get into a co-op placement so that I could get my foot into an institution like RBC. But at the end of the day, my heart was with community. So I eventually found my way into markets. So I'm telling you this, it is there. I am not going to sugarcoat it. You're going to face that de-skilling, and I'm not saying it is everybody's reality, but it's going to be the majority. That's just numbers. Our integrated employment services program is how the province of Ontario is now looking at their employment opportunity structure. So rather than the city dealing with it, they've outsourced it now to service providers. And our responsibility is to make sure that when you come, we do that analysis, that assessment of where you are, what is it you come to the table with, what you're looking for, is there any training that is needed. We support you in getting those trainings, such as like your CPR or something of that sort, or if there's a trade that you like to go into. So we go through that employment counseling, assessment and counseling, and then we try and align you with the right job, the right employer. And because we are going to be going to the employer on your behalf or supporting you in that job seeking process, the strategy should realize a greater success in you landing that first permanent job. And I always say this, and maybe it is definitely a Black thing. When you go in, show up, take space. Don't go in expecting that they're going to give you permanent position right away. I am telling you, you're going to go in there and have to make them know that you are there to work, that you are ready for this, that you come experienced. Don't downplay your experience. Speak up. Sometimes we're concerned about our accent, we're concerned about our dressing, but I can tell you that if you show up and show your experience, bring your whole self to it, it has worked for me. It has worked for me. So those are some of the kind of counseling you'll have with me, because I'll be managing the program in the initial stages. But it's to make sure that you get in. And when you get in, we strategize how you stay in and how you elevate from that point. So that's in a nutshell what the IES is, Integrated Employment Services. It's going to be funded, it is funded by the province, and it's a way to create what they call greater labor market attachments. So supporting newcomers and other persons who are on income support systems like OW and ODSP to find jobs and to keep jobs.
Maybe just a follow-up on the same. We have this, because that will be like a resource that help most of our members maybe get from short-term kind of employment or jobs to a long-term. Now, that transition, of course, is very important and good. However, there is this aspect of how they are able to enroll into that. Could you answer that? How do they? Yes. How do they get into the program itself?
So the IES eligibility is, are you legally able to work in Canada? Do you have your work permits? And if you do, you have to. If you don't, then you're not eligible for the program. Also, if you're on ODSP or OW, so are you on income supports, It doesn't necessarily have to be income supports though. If you are looking to get a full-time job and you are legally able to work and you are an adult, then you also can come and speak with us and we can support you with finding employment if you're looking for full-time work, so over 20 hours. Oh, so it hasn't started yet. But when it does start, you can go through your worker, your OW worker, who will put you in the system, and then through the OW worker and EO, that is on Employment Ontario, then they will pretty much triage it, those referrals to different service providers. So Margaret's may not get your name. However, we also do internal referrals. So if you do want to be a part of the program, you can take one of our flyers and submit and send us an email with your information. When it opens up in March, we'll be able to give you an appointment to come in and have an interview. And we go through the assessment tool, see what it is you qualify for, what your goals are, your employment goals are, if there are any gaps that we need to figure out with you, and then we can put you together with one of our job developers.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to say thank you for what you're saying and offering. We have, through our work with through the ACC, we have, like, how we say that, direct link with someone in every organization who are black-led, like we Wood Green and like Delta family, who help us do that. Because what I was usually say, we need to start something like the Black Work Bank or Black Job Bank. Every person who have a connection with a black business owner, and this organization are missing the black business owners, either small or big. Because again, we have to say that. We spoke about the Indians find a job. Let's talk about Ukrainians. You never see an Ukrainian because you go to a Ukrainian church and they find you a job through the resources. We have a big community, but we're not established like most communities because most of us are new. Most of us are newcomers. But there are some people who are willing to help, and we need support, and we have discussion among us. So every connections count, and this is for Margaret and all the other Margarets. All the organizations are supporting us. Find us black job owners, black businessmen, and tell them that we need the support. We need to have our clients to come and do their experience, internship, all that into a black businesses. They have to support our community. They have to support us. They will gain from our experience, and they will get the training that we need, and this is the partnership that we need to have. So this is for Christopher and for the panelists and for everyone. What we need is to build a black system, not only black run shelters. We have run up big names, black excellencies, meetings, all that stuff, but what these groups are doing. It's like the black newcomers refugee came 2 years ago. We talk about these things here, it's like it's a new thing, but actually we need that plan to be started 10 years ago. So I think what we need is to ask black-run businesses to come to the table, and we should have that. Because every newcomer have to find support systems. This support system is not going to be only through the organizations. It has to be with the community. And community means if you own a house or apartment, you support your newcomers and read to them. You don't think like all the other barriers that other people are giving them. You have to do that. We need, if you're going to say culture appropriate, then culture appropriate and support black businesses, black business owners, black house owners. We have an Asia town, we have Italy. We don't have little Africa. Africa can be little, but we don't have. We have Jamaica, little Jamaica, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So where are the businesses that can support us? The community that we need to build. This community have to be asked for out loud, so they have to know. We have to push the black community first to support us. Then when we are united, then we can push the city. Then we can push the laws to be changed. We have to start, again, advocacy. I have to start, I'm not blaming the groups or the black folks, but I want them to be more outspoken and organized. So I want to just finish that. Thank you for what you're doing, and I want your connection and card after the meeting.
Sure.
I'm getting one of your clients.
All right. As we wrap up, I want to give my panelists here the last, I don't like the word last, but as we wrap up, can you wrap up with some personal growth and development tip to a newcomer that is here today and those that may watch us any day from now? Your personal growth and development tip as we wrap up.
Okay, so there's a lot I could say, but I'm going to be around, so I will share those one-on-ones with you if I get the opportunity to. But I want to say this point because I've been asked this many times. So I'm the senior manager at Margaret's for programs and special projects. And I've been asked numerous times, how did you get the job that you have? Or you seem so young, how are you in that position? Or, you know, things like that. I'm going to say this, accept the reality, but show up anyway. Accept the reality, but show up anyway. And the reality is that there is systemic racism. The reality is that Canada is going to say to you there is not enough space and there is not enough resources. There is the reality that you are coming without the networks and the resources yourself. There is a reality that you're probably facing homelessness and myriad of other problems. Those are your reality. But I'm going to say show up anyway. And when you show up, be prepared to fight to stay. And so once you go with that mindset that there is a personal goal that you have, that you want to achieve, you see yourself owning your own home as opposed to being on co-op. You see yourself, you know, perhaps even opening your business instead of being employed for the rest of your life. Have these things decided in your mind, and then you work towards them. It may not happen tomorrow, but consistently working at those goals is really what has gotten me where I am. And I know that I am in a position where I want to be because I have showed up. I have showed up. Despite all the odds, and I'll tell you some of them, I have showed up. So just be prepared to do that. And when you come into our program, and I'm not saying if, but when you come into our employment services program or our housing program, be persistent, be tenacious, follow up. If there is take home that you need to do, like we give you something, we've decided what the plans are for getting you the job that you've identified, work at it. Work at it. Don't just sit and say, oh, it's difficult and this person, you know, when I showed up, they didn't seem like they're interested. It's not about anybody else but you at this point in time. You do what you can and then you let the chips fall where they are. And I guarantee you, you would have moved the mark a bit in your favor.
Thank you. I'm going to use the word that you said. Be tenacious. That's good. Yeah. What I would like to say, like I said that previously. In my life, I always looked at any things that come to me at the stairs. Obviously, I can do stairs, but I can go around them. It takes me longer to go there, but I will reach my goals. So set your goals. Say I will do it in 2 years. If it became 3 years, don't stop. Keep pushing. You're going to be there. And know one thing, that what you're doing is not for yourself. Don't think about getting a car and driving to your home. Think about getting a bigger car to support your family. Family here or there. When you do something, you're holding in your shoulders the whole newcomers, Africans, Asians, Indians, anyone who's not white, That's you. You support them. What we're aiming for here is not more salary, it's not more money. We're aiming to change laws to make this country the way they say it's gonna be. We're here to make sure it's fit us and them and everyone who's coming, because there is always barriers. There is always stairs coming to your face. You have to go around them or you stop and say, I can't do that. That's your choice. So I choose to go around them and go there to where I'm going. That's what I'm asking everyone to go, because there's gonna be barriers, language barriers. If you're a man, woman, LGBT community, Muslim, Christian, Jews, there is always someone who comes with a phobia against it. So we have to break all this change. We have to go around, work harder. You come from Africa, you never seen snow before, but you're here. So you come through that. Someone tell you don't have experience, you learn. Half of the meetings I go to, like I said, I just came a few years ago, I don't understand what they say. But I go back and do my research. I record what they say, and like I said, teenagers, I just figure out what that means right now. So, but I'm using it. So it's a learning process. But what I ask you all is that don't think about yourself. Think about everyone around you, how you make this country better, because it's our home now. We'll not forget about Africa, we're still black. But Canada is multicultural and multi-generation, everything they say. So be part of that. And once I heard that people say Canada is like a bowl of soup. You put every kind of vegetable, then you make something nice. So we're part of the ingredients that are gonna build Canada. Work hard, and like I said, there's stairs, and you go around them, put the plan, stick to the plan, and you will make it. And if you couldn't make it by yourself, teach your kids. Tell them about your story. So let's build it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. A round of applause to my panel here, and thank you very much. We appreciate. And at this moment in time, I want to engage. Our session is open for Q&A, but I want to recognize the presence of Dr. Sumi Chang, Executive Director for the Street Heaven. You were supposed to be in this panel. We are very sorry. We kind of moved a little very swiftly and we skipped the one part where your neighbor also was supposed to have had. So we'll have you in the next subsequent session. However, our session now is open for questions from the audience. If you have any question, just raise your hand and then ask anything with regards to the submissions of the panel here. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the first question is from me. To maybe Maggie, since you talked about housing, is there any coalition between different organizations and different shelters? And if so, what are the kind of discussions you have with these shelters in terms of improving their services for people from Africa? And then the other question would be, there are so many other housing programs that newcomers are not aware of. In this case, I mean, if someone is looking for a house in terms of getting a mortgage, or if they're not going through COHAB or a shelter system, what are those other programs that they can go through in terms of finding housing on their own, or any sort of subsidiary loans for buying homes? And if so, is there anything that Margaret's Housing can do with respect to that?
That's a good question. We are a part of the BChat and Aritas working groups, which is a groups of shelters currently, or shelter providers, shelter service providers, who are really at the forefront of changing the way we do business in the Toronto shelter system. So as I said, right now we are responding in real time to the increase in Black and racialized clients that we have across our system. So in those groups, we are lobbying for greater representation at the decision tables. We are lobbying for increased services and facilities to serve Black and racialized folks. We do have the CABR, which is the Confronting Anti-Black Racism unit within the TSSS, the Toronto Shelter Services, that has started implementing changes within how we operate. For instance, the foods we provide to our clients, things like grooming products, just on a very granular level. What's the experience of newcomers of different ethnicities coming into our system? How do we give room and space and meet your needs in the specific ways that you need them to be met? So this is actively ongoing, and we take our role in that very seriously as Margaret's. We've always been a champion of Black advocacy at TSSS. Our executive director, Diane Edwards, is known for that. She's going to show up and she's going to ask those tough questions. And so we are still working within those groups to change it. And we are seeing real-time changes to some of these issues that have been identified as barriers and irritants to you as you access these services. The other question that you asked was
regarding housing outside of shelter services,
right,
and for people who'd like to look at options of buying a house, getting a mortgage.
Yeah.
And is there any sort of subsidiary programs that they can go for?
Yeah. So I am not a mortgage advisor, so that wouldn't be a question that I can answer right here. I may have ideas, but that's not something I could say on this platform. But I would want to say that there is a continuum of housing options. There is, entering from the emergency baseline shelter to transitional housing, which is when you come in, but you're only doing it for a few months or so, and then you move on to some other permanent rental or other types of housing that you have arranged for yourself. There is permanent housing, which is also available under the Ontario government programs. So permanent housing would be like the RGI, where you're being paid for. The government is paying your rent or providing you affordable housing, like a co-share with the rent. And then if you have, the idea for these programs is not for you to stay in that situation, but for you to use it as a springboard into creating those wealth and assets base that you should, that every Canadian want for themselves. You now coming in will be a Canadian too. So yes, there are opportunities within the wider Canada for newcomers to apply for mortgages through private institutions, and that's something that you'll have to look into with local banks and stuff. But outside of that, I'm not aware of any programs right now that is specifically geared towards that. More on the business front, like if you were interested in opening a business as a Black or person identifying as Black or ethnic, there are business opportunities that you can tap into. So, and funding for your businesses if that's something you had a mind for. So if there are any entrepreneurs in here, I would encourage you to think about that as well, because it's a part of your integration into Canada. You don't necessarily just need to be looking for a job. And we know that many of us here, we're hustlers, right? We're going to work, or we're going to do our little knitting, or we're going to do our hair, or we're going to we can do that. There are opportunities there for you. So don't limit yourself. When I say show up with all of you.
Yeah, there was a question there. No. Our mic cannot reach there, so you can just amplify your voice.
The straightforward answer is no. I know that we've had situation where we had to advocate for a client because they had to move out, whether it's because of pregnancy for one, and other critical issues that required them to leave the shelter. It may be even for safety, because we understand the situations that present themselves in shelter. So Margaret's is a very trauma-informed and anti-oppressive organization. So if we have, for instance, maybe a woman or someone who identifies a sexual orientation and maybe feeling unsafe in a space, and we wanted them to leave, or not want them to leave unless they're the aggressor. In those instances, we have moved to advocate for those people to still be given co-op based on the number of days that they were there. But shelters may operate differently. They may just stick to, this is what they say and go with that. But I know that there is room for some amount of room for advocacy in situations where they had to leave prior to accessing the co-op. But it's not that it is a guarantee. It is, if you are there in the shelter, the idea is to get you out of the shelter into more sustainable housing. So if you're outside of the shelter, then we would be unable to provide that facility of co-op to you, unfortunately.
I know Dr. Sumi has not been in the panel, but do you have anything to add on that?
On that particular issue? No,
Yeah.
I think probably you don't want
Okay, another question? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Natalie. My question is about co-op again. If you have been in the shelter, maybe like 6 months, and then they decide to get for you a transitioning house, when you have already started applying for co-op, do you still qualify to get co-op after moving out of the shelter?
No, because transitional housing, the nights in transitional housing doesn't qualify as shelter nights. So you wouldn't be. Once you leave the shelter, then you wouldn't get co-op. But I've seen people give up those opportunities to, and it's your right. Anything I say here, you have to take it and you have to see if it will work for you and what your goals are, okay? But I have seen clients who said, no, I do not want to go into transitional housing because I want to stay so I can get access to co-op. Understand that it's a gamble because the co-op is limited and they are looking at closing the program. It's been going on for about 2 years now. So they are looking to wind down the program. It's always going to be a temporary situation to get the highest number of people out of the system to create that flow through. So if it is that you are in transitional housing, for whatever reason, you wouldn't be qualified for the co-op. Use that opportunity in the transitional housing to move towards more permanent housing. I would say that's also a strategy that you could think about, because even if you are on co-op, we don't know if they're going to take it away in 2 years, right? Even though you are in an apartment on co-op. And as you said, Sally, if you start working or there's any form of income change, significant income increase, then you may also lose the co-op, which is okay. I keep telling people it's okay if that happens. It means that you're in a good position. We just need to work to make sure that you can now sustain that employment or that business venture that you've started. So don't limit yourself because they're limiting. Those limiting facilities can keep you back, and we don't want that. That's not what we're advocating for. We're advocating for supports to help you move up socially, not to keep you in a certain status quo.
You want to add?
Sorry, if I can just say with regards to COB. Thank you. If I can just say with regards to co-op, sorry, I've never heard COB called co-op, so my apologies. I've usually just called it as COB. With regards to COB, so let's be clear, right now, COB is funded partly by the province, partly by the feds, and also supported by the city. And each shelter agency is given like an allocation amount, right? So St. Margaret's has one, we have one. And in the last year or so, it's been really stingy. We only get 3 1/4. I don't know how many you got. It just isn't enough for the number. And we have 77 shelter users right now in our shelters. Just remember, like, COB is a benefit, and the advice we've been trying to give all of our clients, because, you know, we know that as nice as our shelters are, we feel women should move on and, you know, become more independent, find their own home. I'm sure they don't want to share a room with 3 other women, as nice as the other women are. And so we always advise them, like, start lining up, work with your case manager, start finding your own home, like rental home or whatever, because COB allows you to afford rental market, right? COB, remember, is only given to you for 7 years. So you have like a 7-year window as the time ticks to try and become more and more independent, as you say, to move on to greater independence and success. And when you do get COB, try to take advantage of it immediately. I wouldn't say that those who are allocated COB and who start using COB will lose COB, because I feel like the current funding envelope by the government, you will continue to get the remainder of your COB years, right? Mm-hmm. But it's really everybody else in front of you who's still waiting for a COB, and that's the risk. Those in front of you may not actually be given an allocation of COB. So my suggestion for anyone currently in a shelter who is going to be eligible, who is eligible for COB, and who has like found their rental apartment or whatever, is to try to immediately take advantage of that COB before some of that closes. I will say that we're in an election year. Governments want to spend money. They want to help out with the housing. We probably won't see COB cutting back, which is good. So take advantage of it. Go work closely with your shelter case manager. Try and find your apartment or wherever you want to be, and take advantage of that COB as soon as possible, because more will start coming out, and it just allows you to move out of the shelter faster. I mean, it is a little scary. Transitional, you know, when you go suddenly from shelter to your own home, it can be a little scary. I've heard some of our clients even wanting to give up their COB and come back, and we're like, don't do that. Continue to be independent and successful. It can be a little bit of a shock to suddenly go from shelter to your own place, but take advantage of the shelter workers. They're there to help you. They can help ease your transition. And going from a transition housing to an apartment or a rental market is not a bad idea. But if I were to choose, I may differ from you. Yeah, I actually would say take COB, go find your own rental market. Don't take the transitional housing, because they will probably have the ability to tell you to leave after a year or two, because that's the way their lease works. Whereas at least with COB, that follows you, whereas rent supplements stay with only the apartment.
So our housing hub at Margaret's does provide that sort of a hand-holding assistance with our clients. So you can come in to the location at 21 Park Road, and we can go through the application with you to see if there is anything that you've missed while you were inputting your information, or to give you any advice on how to strengthen that. It's something that you constantly have to update if there are any changes. So that's also very important, that you maintain the currency of the information that's on the RGI. So yes, we can work with you to see what has happened with your application and how we can improve what you've already entered.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you very much. A round of applause to the panel here, and we appreciate you. Oh.
Just a wrap around, like I say, or close up. If you're waiting for COHAP, like I said, work on your document, help us before you go. Start building your credit, make connections to find someone who will help with the guarantee, work closely with your worker, with that. COHAP, if you still, we used to, sorry, I'm a shelter resident by nature. We say, when you did your time. If you're doing your time in the shelter, sorry. You're doing your time in a shelter. Use that time. Volunteer, build your credit, make the connections, look for a neighborhood that you like, get ready. So when you COHAP comes to a shelter, they go ask you, fill the form, and the person who's ready, who will get that 3 or 5 applications that they have.
Yeah.
So if you're not ready, someone else will get it. So use the time. Looking for a job, it's a full-time job. Looking for an apartment, a full-time job. Do your research and be ready for that. So just help us to be ready for you.
Thank you very much, Saleh and Maggie. We appreciate your presence and being able to join us today. If you've just joined us, joined us, this is the Newcomer Town Hall meeting, and today the theme is creating a plan to improve our community together. And for your information, some few announcements again if you've just joined us. The washroom, if you're going to use the washroom, you go walk through from the back door there and just follow the signs that shows you where the washrooms are. And also, my name is George Wilobo, and I'm here with Jeff. Jeff is going to take us through the next part of the program. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, George. Thank you, our dear panelists. I believe that was a very good panel discussion. We learned a lot. I myself have learned a lot. So at this point, for about 1 or 2 to 5 minutes, let me invite Javier from Migrate Canada. Perhaps he will introduce himself and tell us about what they do, and perhaps if there is any update on immigration, he's the right person to tell us. So, Javier, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon. It's already it's afternoon. Good afternoon, my dear brothers and sisters in the struggle. My name is Javier Hardeleza. I am the Migrante Canada Vice Chairperson, and I'm from the Philippines, and I am a former international student. So, Migrante Canada is a chapter of the Philippine-based Migrante International. Let me introduce our organization. It's a global alliance of over 200 member organizations in 23 countries, and founded in October 2010, and has 14 chapter members in the 5 provinces of Canada. So what we do, address rights and welfare of migrants and our compatriots, campaigns and advocacy, education and research, networking and lobbying, international solidarity, exposure tours. Thank you for that information. The first 2 speakers, the information that were given, and I was sitting at the back and I focused on something like, the organizations and our organizations, campaigns. They mentioned about campaigns and advocacy, education, networking, and lobbying. That is very much important as of today. So, anybody watch news this morning? What's the headline? I'm just gonna ask as a trivia. All right. Headline is basically the 25% tariff implemented by in Canada. So I just mentioned that because January 20, when you watch the inauguration of President Trump, there are figures behind. The owner of Facebook, you have Facebook, right? His net worth is 211 billion net worth last year. Jeff Bezos, did you order in Amazon today or yesterday? His net worth is 239 billion net worth. Did you drive a Tesla car? 434 billion net worth of Elon Musk. Why? Why did I mention this? Because these are very important. Policies. Policies are very much important. But the question is, changes in policies for whom and for what? Right now, prologue, the government of Canada, and there's a lot of changes in IRCC that affects not only international students, migrants, regardless from what country you came from, you are affected, including myself. Let me cite an example. On September 6, 2023, Professor Tomoya Obokata, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery, released a critical report on Canada's Temporary Foreign Worker Program, TFWP. He declared that agricultural and low-wage streams of the Temporary Foreign Workers Program constitute a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery. And it was reaffirmed 2 days ago by Amnesty International that LAMIA, closed work permit, is a basis of contemporary forms of slavery. What happened in 2023? Professor Obokata gave 3 recommendations to the Canadian government. First is, Professor Obokata highlighted the precarious condition faced by migrant workers under employer-specific work permits, or LAMIA, also known closed work permit, which restrict their ability to report abuses due to fears of deportation. In his report, recommendations in the area of human rights of migrants, he called for the regularization, first one, regularization of their status. Second, creation of clear pathways to permanent residency to combat these abuses. And the third, regularization of TFWP through bilateral agreements in sending countries and permit consular oversight and protection of workers, among other recommendations. Policies are very important, right? But the thing is, let me cite you what happened in 2020, COVID. In 2020, because of the COVID and the billionaires' businesses are in danger, the tourist holder can work. They immediately come up, the government of Canada immediately come up with a policy that the visitor's visa holder can work in 2020, right? Because they need workers. Last year, few years ago, they take it out because according to them, the economy of Canada is a pre-COVID condition. So the billionaires already get so the businesses back to business. I mentioned about Donald Trump and Canadian people. So this is not a trade war. This is not a trade war. This is a billionaires war, regardless. But in the losing end, who are in the losing end? The migrant workers, us, the Canadian people, working class people, the American working class people. And also, in 2020, so the government can come up with that policy immediately, right? But we advocate in Migrante about, I don't know if you already heard this, almost 500,000 are undocumented. So we advocate for regularization and status for all. And in 2021, even Prime Minister Justin Trudeau gave, that was a former Fraser before, now it's Miller, the IRCC, the head of IRCC, I forgot what that. So he said, the Prime Minister said, come up with a pilot program so that there will be a pathway for the undocumented, right? Because if there's no pathway, I can guarantee the housing projects of different institutions will be overwhelmed. That's why we advocate for a policy change. We lobby, right? So that is, policies are very much important. And lastly, did you know that, last trivia, City of Toronto is considered as the first, or until now, it is considered a what? A sanctuary city. City of Toronto is a sanctuary city, one of the sanctuary city. Undocumented should, but we don't know what do we mean by in terms of implementation, right? So this is a sanctuary city. So that's why we are here with you, the African Center for Refugees in Ontario, Canada. We are very much, I would say, open heart. Like, we welcome you to be with us in terms of solidarity, especially policy change. I think this is very timely because there will be an upcoming parliament election, right? So that is very much important to influence the policies that they will make are pro-migrant policies. Okay? So we are also, Canada is also a member of International Migrants Alliance. I will leave some information about what IMA or IMA Canada is, International Migrants Alliance. And before I end up, I would like to teach you one chant that we always use in Migrante. So please, maybe you can repeat after me. All right. 1, 2, 3. The migrants united will never be defeated. The migrants united will never be defeated. The migrants united will never be defeated. Thank you so much and congratulations to your meaningful event.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you. Sorry, I mispronounced your name. You should blame my accent. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful time. I'll have an update on lunch, but at this moment, I would like to invite Ranjit. He has a few things he wants to talk about. And after Ranjit, we'll have some remarks from Dr. Sumi.
Have you heard about this term, social determinants of health? Anybody? Yes. Some have heard. Now, we'll go through what they are and get a broader sense of what social determinants of health, especially pertinent to LGBTQ plus refugees. People like most of us, and I came as a gay man from Sri Lanka to Canada some years ago. So, and some of these conditions are applied to all of us in very different, unique ways. Okay, so this is about politics. I want to say this. I am very political, and we need to be political if we are going to stay alive, I would say. Yeah. Otherwise, you know what is happening right now in the world. It's unbelievable. Yes. Okay, so what exactly are they? Can somebody read this for me, please? Rukia, yes? Thank you.
Yeah. The social determinants of health, SDH, are the non-medical factors that influence health outcomes. They are the conditions in which people are born, grow, work, live, and age, and the wider set of forces and the system shaping the condition of daily life. These forces and the system include economic policies and the systems, development agenda, development agents, social norms, social policies, and political systems.
Rukia, thank you so much. So this applies to all of us. So they are non-medical factors because they are social constructs. Socially, they happen in different social systems because social systems quite often are unjust and unequal. Got it? So, yeah, and they influence health outcomes. How do you feel now? Now you came from your home countries, some of your home countries are warm and you can go wherever you like. Nobody thinks that you are, nobody thinks that you are black or brown or yellow, because we all are. And here you come and all of a sudden, you realize that you are black. I realize that I'm brown skin. Or mixed race and so on. And they impact your intellect, your brain, your body. And that becomes, in the end, it influences your health. It impacts on your health. That is what it means. This is the World Health Organization's definition, very broad. Okay, so let's go to, you got a sense of what this is. We will revisit this. And why I'm doing this this brief presentation is that when we talk about housing, we talk about employment. And lack of housing, lack of employment, lack of access to healthcare, support systems, they influence our health. They influence our physical health, they influence our mental health. So this is about understanding the conditions in which we live, and we are forced to live in this country that we now call Canada. Okay. So LGBTQ refugees, most of us who are here are either asylum seekers. These have very specific definitions, like legalities. An asylum seeker is somebody who has come to Canada with the purpose of seeking asylum. They may be like international students, they may have come with or without a visa, but with the intention of seeking asylum. Asylum seekers. People who have become non-status is either they have exhausted their refugee claim processes and become illegalized, not illegal, illegalized. We are not illegal. The systems make us illegal. So, refugee claimants, some of you, many of you are refugee claimants. You got that paper, brown paper you called it, the refugee ID, and then there's some documents. And permanent residents, another layer, new Canadians. But we all are still fully human. We are just enough as who we are. Okay, never forget that. Yeah. And so, why are we here? I came here, I was teaching at a university before I came here. And you talk about de-skilling, yeah. And all the qualifications became null and void. I have 3 master's degrees, 2 undergraduate degrees. Yeah. So you have to constantly update yourself, and so this is the situation, and I don't have to explain this because this is our reality. This is your reality, this is our reality. Because, and these have the criminalization of homosexuality, being transgender, has essentially colonial and neo-colonial connotations, neo-colonial backgrounds. Now, has anybody seen the documentary God Loves Uganda? Anybody who has seen that movie? God Loves Uganda. Of course God loves Uganda. God loves everybody. But that documentary, it is freely available on YouTube. Everybody must see that movie. So, an award-winning documentary actually. God Loves Uganda. Just Google it, save it somewhere, watch it. It talks about some of the neo-colonial invasions, Christian right movements, like you name it. And they go and convert people into Christianity, but that also comes with a heavy load of homophobia and transphobia. And this is, and they influence policies, laws, and reject us, like dehumanize us, people like us. So that is the neo-colonial invasion. Not just colonial, but also colonial. British colonialism in particular criminalized homosexuality, and that is how we have become demonized by these systems. Okay, so, and challenges we face, LGBTQ plus refugees face in their home countries. Now, can somebody name that? This is about your story. What the challenges you faced in your home country just because of who you are? Any challenge? Yes? Stigma, yes. Discrimination. Lack of freedom of expression, yes. And I had broken ribs. Physically, sometimes you were assaulted, and I couldn't see a doctor or anything, because what excuse can I give? I was assaulted severely. All these things. And then, okay, so what else? Physical assault, stigma around. Guilt? Yes, and you feel like you are a criminal. Not you feel like, but the system makes you a criminal. And sometimes you internalize that too, and think that something is wrong with you. It happened to me. I went to get counseling, but it was because to change myself, I thought, oh my God, something is wrong with me. And these things are happening still around us. Forced, so-called conversion therapy or conversion torture. These things are happening. So these are some of those, okay, growing up in transphobic, homophobic environments, confusion, guilt, some of you talked about self-hate, self-denial, familiar, remember? Suicidal ideations, oh my gosh. Yeah, suicidal attempts, unsafe work environments, and you have to constantly leave jobs and run to another part of the country, and you have to relocate yourself for safety. And this is also important, the last one. Now, when I was in Sri Lanka, I am gay, and I did not have anybody to relate to, like, okay, to have a healthy relationship, because there are no role models or no social scripts, like in the heterosexual, straight institution, there is a religious script, social script. This is what a family looks like. This is what a healthy relationship, straight relationship looks like. But do we have those? No, we don't. We are demonized. We are like abominations. I was called by some relatives of mine, that I am a waste of life. So, yeah, I was a waste of life, I was called. Yeah. So this is, before coming to Canada, this is what we feel. They are called pre-resettlement stresses. Okay. These are common and unique to us. I'm just giving you a general idea. And then, what happens? Our body keeps the score. These challenges impact on their physical and mental health. Physical health, mental health. I have worked with LGBTQ plus refugees and newcomers for most of my Canadian life. Anybody heard of Rainbow Connect program? Anybody from the Rainbow Connect program? Yeah. So I'm the one who started it 5 years ago. And, yes. Access Alliance, has anybody been there? They have a program now. In 2013, I was instrumental in starting it. Yes, and developing it to the levels that you see now. So, these challenges really affect our mental health and physical health. I have had depression, suicidal ideations while I was in Canada. Yes, these are very real, and I want you to embrace these realities so that you can become yourself, you can become your best friend. So, okay. And the other thing is this: immigration status is a key social determinant of health for LGBTQ plus newcomers. Have you thought about it? That if you don't have the papers, how much it wears you down? The anxiety, oh my gosh. Fear, the moment you see a policeman person or police car, you feel like, oh, yeah, scary. And as I said before, body keeps the score. And these wears us down. And so, immigration status from non-status to refugee claimants to convention refugees to permanent residents and so on. And I would say that Canadian government accept us as some kind of human, fully human, the moment you become convention refugees. I would argue that because for so many programs at so many agencies, IRCC, IRCC, the ministry, does not fund if you are a refugee claimant or non-status people. Those programs are not funded by the government. The funding comes only for convention refugee and others, permanent residents and so on. So many agencies have to somehow find money to run programs for those who do not have the papers, convention refugee status. Like the newcomer support program from provincial funding gives some money, and that is constantly being reduced and reduced and reduced. But with this comes access or lack of access to employment, access or lack of access to healthcare, housing, and so on. So those things affect our health. And although Canada says that refugees are welcome here, are we really welcome here? So these are the resettlement stressors. You come to Canada thinking of what? Safe haven? That's how I came to Canada. I thought, oh my God, I will be amazing and all that. But that thing hit the fan when I came to Canada. Anyway, so if you have no papers, no life, and life being put on hold, you're so ready to work. You have come here to work, not to live on others' money or something, because you are capable. You can give your expertise to make this a better world, but your life is put on hold. And there is a thing called racism. You realize that, oh my God, which you had no idea of before. But there is racism. And then it develops, you begin to self-doubt yourself, and you feel like inadequate. Sometimes that's how it happens. And food, lack of access to food is massive. Do you miss cassava, peanuts, matoke, all that? It's huge. And these things matter. These things really matter. And then you have to provide proof for everything. And then comes the refugee claim process. Oh my goodness. I have worked with thousands of LGBTQ plus refugees and newcomers and gone through their personal narratives. And when you write that, I have helped them write, everything comes back and you have to relive your trauma. Nobody cares for that. At the hearing, it is again how many clients have cried and wept at the refugee claim hearings. Oh my God. Because sometimes the board member asks very specific questions and they come back, they bring back trauma, past memories. So, and sometimes you are being exploited by legal representatives too. I have witnessed that. And again, so facing, what happens again also is that if your claims fail, you face greater risks and you get constantly sick, physical and mental health issues, and not finding LGBTQ enough support services. These are very, very real. You are here, and these are the situations that you face. Did you expect any of these when you came to Canada? No, I didn't. Yeah. So, again, still, the body keeps the score. And these are the challenges you face. And these challenges are systemic and institutional. They are in the system. And they root down to different institutions. And so many institutions are transphobic, homophobic, racist. And there's so much stigma if you tell them that you are a newcomer, you are a refugee, you don't have papers, there is stigma around that. And these challenges are interlocking, they interlock, not just intersect, they interlock. Like being, if you are a trans person and you are a newcomer and you are black or racialized, they are like locked together. You cannot remove one or the other. You cannot sleep and wake up as a white person next day. No, you cannot. So they interlock, and they can be really life-crushing. So this is how the systems work. I will quickly go through this. So forms of oppression are racism, poverty. Now, when I talk about racism, I learned this from a professor of mine, and she said, she does not talk about racism without talking about white supremacy. Because racism is an outcome of white supremacy. And similarly, she said, she does not talk about poverty without talking about capitalism. Capital over labor. And that's what we talked about in the previous discussions, more or less. And because your labor is bought for a tiny amount of money to maximize profit, so that you are kept in poverty. And so they impact, the systems have impacts and vulnerabilities, and they are in the end gone as unmet needs of health and well-being. These are our realities. Okay? So these factors lead to multiple social determinants of health. They are social determinants because they are determined by the socio-political economic systems. Non-medical factors, but can lead to medical conditions, medical complications. So, familiar trauma that we face, anxiety disorders, you feel anxious, panic attacks sometimes, oh my goodness, depression, post-traumatic stress disorders. So these are common, and I'm not putting you in a sense of negativity. I am talking about the realities on which we live. These are the realities. If you do not understand the realities, if you do not understand the problems that we face, we cannot find the solutions for ourselves or for others. We need to really understand the problems and contextualize them, situate them within the systems so we can make changes. And we come with expectations, the expectation of a safe haven, but our experiences are very different. Yes. So, I'm suggesting all of us to wake up. As the previous speaker said, immigrants united will never be defeated. Let's wake up. The promise of a safe haven, that is what we were given. And this country has an obligation too, because Canada is a signatory to the 1951 Geneva Convention of Refugees. That is why you become a convention refugee, not a conventional refugee, okay? Convention refugee. So fulfill that obligation. You don't have to sleep on the street in the cold and be frozen to death almost, and be left having to face violence and stigma and all that. But we have to fight back. This is Dina Nairi, and if you Google Dina Nairi and the ungrateful refugee we have no debt to repay, you will find an article. Do you think you have a debt to repay, to be grateful? I don't think so. We have absolutely no debt to repay. So be that ungrateful refugee, I'm telling you. One of my professors, she's a black queer woman, she said, stop thanking. She said, stop thanking to the class in the Master of Social Work program. And then, so I thought, oh, and then only I realized, and she explained, everybody expects us to be grateful and be thankful, but economize that. Economize that and challenge that. Challenge your thinking also and economize thanking. Of course, I'm not asking you to be somebody selfish or anything, but think about the politics of thanking. Expectations that are put on when you go to a service agency, social care agency, shelter or something. They expect you to be grateful with what you get, thankful. No, it is your absolute right. You have an absolute right to respectable, caring, kind service. They are there and they earn money, they get a salary because of you, not the other way around. So change your mind to think that this is your right. This is your right, and they fulfill service providers, agencies, government, state, they fulfill their duties, and you have a right. So, let's go from eyes wide shut to eyes wide open. And quite often our eyes are wide shut. We don't know what is happening. We don't know what is happening around us. So keep our eyes wide open. That is my suggestion. And these are truly amazing statements. I will just read the last one. Does it make sense? Just think, okay, the last one. People who live with multiple marginalized identities do not merely face extra barriers. Their lived experience is entirely different. Now, when I use these three statements, I give an example, a common example. Just take the situation of a woman, female. Just by being a woman, without going into other intersections, you have to constantly negotiate your safety, which I, with my male privilege, cannot understand, because I don't have that lived experience. But if you are a woman, the moment you go out of this space, you have to negotiate. Who knows who will come onto you, who will be violent towards you. And you have to again determine or negotiate in your brain, should I go out in the dark or not? Should I go with somebody else? You understand, no? So that is what it means. Your lived experience just by being a woman is entirely different. It does not have to be so. But let's add to that other layers of social conditions that are imposed on us. If you identify yourself as a black or racialized woman, a black, racialized, trans woman, a newcomer, those are additional layers. And being new to Canada, additional layers. Your lived experience is entirely different. And I call it that we live in parallel universes. Parallel because they don't merge or mix. We have to transform from one universe to the other to get a little sense. How can we understand somebody who live on the street unhoused because there is no place to go in this weather? Just imagine. And I have had clients who have lived for several weeks or months without a single cent in their hand. So how can you understand the situations? And then we can do all kinds of things like preach, do this, do that. But these are the realities on which we live, in which we live. So let's gather together, rally around, build solidarities. And there is a rally, is it next week at the City Hall about the budget? There is a rally. So you need to be aware of these moments. City budget is going to be passed soon, and there is a rally demanding more money for housing, for healthcare, for immigrants, and so on. I think it is next week or the week after. It's organized by the Migrant Workers Alliance, among others. So, rally around, you have to go there and show yourself and scream with them. We have organized rallies against a lack of housing, International Housing Day for Housing, and so on. So because, as somebody said before, housing is a basic human right. Everybody. This world has enough resources, enough wealth to feed us all. The problem is the gross inequalities. And the previous speaker was giving us some figures, facts and figures. The world has never been so unequal, ever. Yeah. So this is the end. So stand up. Fight back. A better world is our only option. Yes. And better physical and mental health outcomes do not happen in isolation when the systems are violent and unjust. So we need to change systems. We need to be the part of that system. Actually, I was coming from the International Socialist National Convention today, that's why I got a little late. Join these movements because this is the world that we live in, and going for or fighting for a better world is not just a possibility, but it is a possibility and it is our only option. So I will leave you there, and if you have questions, thoughts, thank you so much.
At this point, let me invite Dr. Somi. Perhaps she has a teaser that you'd let the audience be interested in, but yeah, can give us some remarks and tell us what you do at Street Heaven.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Happy Black History Month, everybody. And my name is Sumi Chang. I am the Executive Director of Street Haven. I'm sorry that your lunch is a little late. I will not speak too long. I know you're all probably hungry. I just want to talk a little bit about Street Haven, a little bit about some of the services that we're offering. Hopefully some of you can take advantage of some of those services. We are a multi-service women's agency. We actually are known as having created Canada's first women's shelter back in 1965. We currently operate 2 shelters, one on Gerrard Street, one on Pembroke Street, for women and for those who identify as women. We operate a really nice shelter. We're very proud of our shelter programs. A lot of the women who are able to transition from our shelter go on to be in rental housing and to supportive care, have gone on to employment and become very successful. And we're very proud of those women, and we're glad that they're very successful. I think Rent Youth makes a very good comment. As a women's agency, we are funded by the city, we're funded by the province, we're funded by the feds, and we are here to serve and support our women, and they should have an expectation of services and respect and civility from our agency. As a women's agency, we also operate several other programs because we've seen over the years, especially since COVID, that more and more women are needing different kinds of support. So we actually now have a mental health program. And you don't need to be a Street Haven client who's currently in our shelter or in our addictions program. We also run an addictions program where you can stay for 3 months if you have an addictions issue. You can take advantage of our mental health program if you just reach out to our agency if you're looking for counseling and some support and case management. In addition to that, we actually also operate about 30 supportive care housing units across the city, most of it in that Pembroke location, just kind of near the park. And that is an area where if you have low, medium, or high needs needs and supports, including mental health, you can access our supportive housing program. But it is a program where we don't see a lot of turnover because it is intended to be housing, and we do want our clients to feel like it's their home. So our focus is not to move them out or shuffle them off. It's for them to feel like it's a safe, secure place. However, that housing is there for as long as they need it, and when they don't need it, we encourage them to go on to social housing or market housing at that point in time. In addition to that, we're extremely excited to announce several new employment services programs we're currently about to offer. They include helping women with finding employment, helping them with an employment plan, helping them with their resumes and how to interview, and also even getting used to the Canadian workplace. There's some cultures and norms that are odd and unique to Toronto and Canada that you might need to kind of figure out what all of that means. In addition to that, something we're really excited about in our employment program is that we actually also offer employment mentorship programs. So we're inviting a lot of these big companies like banks and construction companies and real estate companies to come and offer group mentorship for women, just so that they kind of know what that sector is like, to see if it's of interest to them to seek employment in that space, and to just kind of pursue all the opportunities that are out there. Sometimes it's a way to also see if you can get some employment too, if you make an impression and you kind of showcase how eager you are to be a healthy and happy, successful worker wherever you end up wanting to be. So we're really excited to be launching that program. And if anyone's interested, please reach out to us. The one thing I wanted to talk about too is that we're actually also about to celebrate our 60th anniversary. And we're really excited because Street Haven is now moving into its next phase, in which in the next 5 years, we are looking to introduce even more housing and into this downtown area, especially in the Pembroke location, so that more women, especially those who need supportive care housing, will be able to be housed. We currently have 30. We're hoping we can move up to as many as 100 units, and that's going to be the future of where we are. We're currently working with Christopher. We're really excited to be working with Christopher to see if we can successfully help launch a Black African LGBTQ+ shelter that'll be dedicated for newcomers and refugee claimants. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be successful in that. I think one of the things I thought which might be helpful, and I asked if it might be of interest, is to just talk a little bit about what is happening right now. I know you see the news, and excuse me if I sound like I'm a teacher or an instructor. I do actually teach Canadian politics. So, excuse me, I won't give you a lesson on that, but just to kind of give you a background so you know what's happening right now and what you can do. I suspect that many of you cannot vote at this point in time, but that doesn't mean, as Regent and our earlier speaker, it doesn't mean that you can't be active and be an advocate. And you have your own voice and you have your experiences. And that's very important, I think, given that we're in a very exciting time period right now, because here in Canada, and this is where the lesson comes in, so my apologies, we have 3 levels of government. We have a federal government, we have a provincial government, and we have a local government. The local government is actually a creature of the province. Like, cities are created by legislation. So here in Toronto is actually a creature of the province of Ontario. But the province of Ontario doesn't technically report to the federal government. There are 2 layers of government, but they have different responsibilities. Sorry, I know that's very boring. But that means that, for instance, your healthcare actually is a provincial responsibility. Refugee, immigration, and citizenship is a federal responsibility. So there's just a division. That's why we have these 2 layers of government. Right now, the federal government, you may have heard, like, they use the term prorogue. It just means that right now, government is not active at the federal government. But in March, when government comes back and becomes active, you've heard over and over again, if you watch the news, that they're going to, like, do a confidence motion. They're going to vote down the Liberal government, which is what we have federally. And then we're going to be off to another election. Right now, at the province of Ontario, you may be aware, Ford and Merritt Stiles and Bonnie Crombie, these are all the 3 major political parties, the Liberals, Conservatives, and NDP. They're all active because we're right now in the heart of a provincial campaign. I'm sorry, I know this is boring, but the reason why it's important is the province actually has responsibility for housing. And the reason why it's important for all of you to know is that you want to ensure that the province, that all of these parties make some kind of commitment to supporting you in terms of more investments in housing that's affordable so that you can afford market rent or et cetera, or even helping agencies like Street Haven, the African Center for Refugee, Margaret's Place, all of these agencies, so that we can also go on to keep helping more people who are looking for affordable housing. At the federal level, when that election happens, so the province right now, we're in an election. This is why Kristen Wong-Tam couldn't come today. She's on her campaign. She represents, so again, this is very boring. Each space, each area is represented by certain candidates. Kristen represents this area here in this kind of Toronto part. Other ridings are represented by other areas, wherever you are. It's important for you to actually go out and find out who those candidates are. You can just Google them. Who's your candidate for this Toronto area? Is Kristen, and then Liberal, I'm not sure who the Liberal is or who the Conservative is, but it's important to go out and just talk to them and let them know, this is my story. I just want to let you know I just came to Toronto. I'm looking for help. I want some more help in finding a new home. I want my own place. I want employment. I want to get more help with my documentation. Talk to these people, let them know what your issues are so that they understand when they go out and they talk to their own political party, they can influence them to say, oh, I just met Jane the other day and she was telling me that she just arrived in Toronto 2 months ago and sometimes she's looking for employment but they don't think her experience is enough. What can we do to help these people? So it's important to kind of get out there and just let people know your stories, even if you do not vote. Your experiences and your journey is important for them. The same thing at the federal level. When that happens, which it will happen sometime in April or March, it's also important for you to get out there. What is happening right now? Is housing important? Is employment important? So in terms of like, this is, why do I care? Why is this important politically? At the federal level, that government is very interested in wanting to build more housing. That means, which is a good thing, that means all of us here in Ontario, there's an opportunity to try and influence and bring about more housing. Here in Ontario, Ford has been a little quiet. This government, Ford, who's currently campaigning, has expressed that housing is of interest. But it's important for you to ensure that you tell the province, tell all these elected officials that affordable housing is important and that rent guarantee income housing is important in terms of housing that's geared to your income. So if you, on an annual basis, or if you make $500 a month or $600 a month, you cannot afford market rent. So you want to let them know you need more COP, you need more supports. And then at the city level, just for your information right now, the City of Toronto approved a 10-year strategy to develop 60,000 more houses. And they also approved a 10-year strategy to approve even more shelters for the next 10 years. And this is the first time they've done this in a really long time. So that means that there is a huge focus politically on more housing and more shelters and more supports. So I just wanted to kind of say, and just act as a reminder for all of you again, that it's important for you to get out there, let people know about your experiences. If you're in a shelter, I know sometimes it seems like that it seems a little concerning that if you want to express a complaint, you're concerned that maybe that might have a negative impact. But I do want to assure you that it's important that you share your concerns about what you're looking for. Do you want more help? Do you wish that the shelter offered more culturally responsive foods? Tell them that. Tell them that you would like to celebrate, more of your culture here in the shelter that you have. For instance, in our shelters, for Black History Month, we actually have a little committee of clients, actually, who's actually going to be, it's our social committee. They're actually planning the entire Black History Month for us, and they're planning all these games and all these cultural events, and they're also planning all these African-based meals. We're having meals from Uganda, from Nigeria, and we're planning that every weekend. They're helping to cook those meals. These are things that you can ask your shelter to consider and help. Shelters do want to help you. They want to be more responsive, so don't be afraid to ask. Certainly our clients have done that, and we're super excited to be supporting them in that. So I just wanted to end the comments by saying Happy Black History Month. I hope that you can get a chance to get out there and enjoy some of the celebrations. For those of you who are not part of the Street Haven place, but you'd like to participate in some of those events, we welcome that. We have a lot of events going. If you want to participate in our employment services, please reach out. And I wish you much luck and success in the future. And again, please share your experiences, and please share how you're feeling and what you're looking for with a lot of these elected candidates. They want to hear from you. This is the best time to get out there and give share up your voice. So thank you so much. Have a great lunch.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on social media, and for more information, check out our website.